So you're a brand new agent and you just got your first listing. Now it's pretty simple, right? You just slap a couple pictures together and throw it on MLS and boom, it's sold. Not so fast. I get asked this question every single day by new agents coming into the industry. How do I list and sell a property on the MLS? Now, before I got in the industry, I always thought it was super simple. You throw a sign in the yard, you take some pictures and you throw it on MLS and boom, it's sold. Now, what I've done is put together 15 steps that I personally take when I go and list a property and sell it on the MLS. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. Now, this is 15 steps on how to list and sell a property. What's up, everybody? It's JP Gandam. I've been in the industry for over 7 years and over $100 million in sales and over 100 transactions. I'm top 1.5% at eXp Realty for agent attraction. And we also have a company called Create Quality Leads where we install our client acquisition machine in your business to provide a scalable way to grow your real estate business. So what you're going to want to do right now, guys, is take notes, write things down, understand what these 15 steps are so that you don't miss any of these steps. You don't really want to miss any of these steps because it could result in you actually not selling the property. So let's get right into it. So step one, what I like to do before even going to the property or even meeting the clients is I like to get the address. Now, wherever you got this listing from, maybe it's your sphere, maybe you were door knocking, maybe it's a client of yours from Create Quality Leads where we help install the acquisition machines. Wherever you get these clients from, you want to get the address. This will allow you to do a couple things. Firstly, you can do your homework. You can understand where the house is located, where the comps are at in price, what different things are about the property that may have sold in the past, when it was sold in the past, things like that. It really allows you to get deep into the weeds on information about the property. Now, you aren't going to be able to get the exact price point because to do that, you have to walk through the property and understand what the condition is of the property, but it'll give you a really good idea. It should get you about 90% of the way there. Also, it allows you to pull title for the property. So you get to actually see, hey, who's their mortgage with? Is there anything weird on the property? Are there any liens? Are there any restrictive covenants? Things like that. You want to be aware of these things so you're not blindsided at the appointment, and you can actually have talking points on these certain things, or you can have questions for them when you actually go and meet them. So step two is finally the meet and greet. So this is where you actually go to their house. And when I say you go to their house, yes, you do go to the property. You don't meet them for coffee. You don't meet them at your office. That does not make sense. Guys, you want to meet them at their house where they can actually go in and tell you things about their house. This is where you want to ask questions. You want to be essentially a very curious person in that home because they've lived there. They know every good thing, every bad thing, and every little nook and cranny that that house has to offer. You're just walking in there for the very first time. So this is one of the only times where you can act like you know nothing and you can be extremely curious on, hey, what's this house about? So while they're giving you the grand tour and they're walking you around their beloved house, you want to ask them questions like, hey, what's the best part of the house? What's the worst part of the house? Why do you guys want to make a move? What kind of memories do you guys have in the house? Get a little bit personal. You want to build rapport at this point and really get to know them as homeowners. Now, after you've done the full tour, you want to sit somewhere like the dinner table or even their family room table. Now, this gives you a chance to actually go through your listing presentation, talk about, hey, why am I the best for the job? What can I do differently that other agents won't do? For me, I like to personally talk about social media a lot, direct response marketing campaigns. Basically, everything we do at Create Quality Leads and how to get more clients is essentially what I talk to them about on what I do differently in a marketing phase. This is the time where you guys get to really brag. So you get to talk about all the accomplishments you have, all the good things you've done in the real estate industry. If you haven't done a whole lot, leverage some people at your brokerage, leverage some people at your team, leverage some people that you might know in the industry. You're able to do this at the beginning and you are going to need to basically have all of the facts. You're going to need to really rely on your knowledge if you don't have that experience portion. Then what you're going to want to do at this meeting is you're going to want to pull out the comparables. So these are properties that have sold, maybe they're active, maybe they went on the market and they expired. You want to really go through these properties and make sure that the home sellers actually understand, hey, these houses are selling at these prices and they're not just listed at these prices. So a lot of the times people will get really confused with, hey, that John listed his house for 1.7. I want 1.7, but they don't realize that John's house has been on the market for 180 days and nobody is even looking at John's house. John just doesn't want to decrease his price and actually sell his house because he doesn't have a real motivation to sell. So this is where you can explain things like that and make them understand that, hey, looking online might not be the best way to get your information and you are actually the best source of information. Then a lot of the times, guys, after I show them all the comparables, I ask them what they think their home is worth. So when you do this, you actually get a better understanding of where they're at in terms of numbers. And then if, let's say, for example, they say, yeah, you know what, I think it's worth 1.5 after seeing all the comps. And you know that you could probably get 1.55. That's information you can keep in your back pocket and you can kind of tell them, hey, you know what, I do think that this is worth maybe 1.5, but I think 1.5, 1.55, but I think 1.5 is a great starting point so that maybe we can drive multiple offers and even get 1560 or 1570 or something like that. So you really are going to need to think on your toes when it comes to this point, because you're going to have a rough value, but you're also going to need to take into consideration what you just saw. If their house is a complete mess and it needs $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 worth of repairs, then maybe you drop the price $50,000, $60,000, because there has to be a gap between, hey, if it needs this amount of repairs, there's sweat equity that's going to be put in. So you do need to account for that, right? Somebody's not just going to say, hey, it needs 30 grand repairs, give me 30 grand off. They're going to say, it needs 30 grand repairs, give me 40 grand off, because now I got to go through the headache of spending the extra 10K and repairing this house. Now, picking the right list price, we'll do in another video because that's a whole video in and of itself. Now you can list high and low, but we won't get into that. But the next thing that you're going to want to do is set expectations with the homeowners. So this is one of the most important things. You need to figure out what's super important to them and what's not super important to them. So maybe if communication was super important to them and they wanted to be communicated with every 2 days and that was their expectation, you should probably know that. So you can set reminders. You can have somebody on your team doing that. You can automate the process. There's so many different ways to actually stay in touch with clients, but communication is one of the biggest shortfalls that agents have when it comes to selling houses. You also want to understand where the market is at. So if you are in a super slow market and you're promising them that it'll sell within the week, you're probably not going to do super well and you're going to have a whole lot of uncomfortable conversations. Now, if you're in a super hot market and you say it's going to take a month and it sells in a week, you look like a superstar. So understand where the market is and set proper expectations. It's no different than when you're in a relationship or a marriage and you need to set expectations with your partner on what certain tasks they need to do, how much they want to be called or texted, things like that. You also want to ask about open houses and lockboxes. So these are things that the seller might have a very big preference. They might not want to do any open houses. They might want open houses done every single weekend. So you really need to understand where they're at and meet them there. Guys, this is a team effort when you're listing a seller's house, and you guys really need to work together to make sure everything jives really well and inevitably you get that house sold. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this video, I would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. We're going to be releasing a whole lot of content that's going to be blowing up your real estate business. So not only like the steps and the procedures like you're hearing right now, but things on how to get into the room with buyers, things how to get in the room with sellers, how do you get leads. So please, again, smash that subscribe button and I'll see you guys later. Step 3 is actually signing the paperwork. So once you guys have come to an agreement, in our city, there's 4 documents that you need to get signed, but it's pretty similar around a lot of different provinces and even countries. Now, the first document is one of the most important documents. It's the listing contract. So that's where you outline, hey, how long are we listing this property? I typically do 4 to 6 months. If it's a super hot market, sure, you can maybe do 3 months, but it gives you enough time to actually be able to get that house enough exposure that it gets the best price possible. Next in that contract is going to be the terms and what they want. Do they want a subject free? Do they want subject offer? I typically put to be determined because you never know what you're going to be receiving. Then there's the price, and then there's the commission. So this is typically where you'll get the most amount of objections. And as a new agent, or as any agent for that matter, you really need to understand how to handle objections when it comes to your commissions. That again will be a whole nother video, but that's something that's super important. Now, the next document that you're going to need to be getting signed is the disclosure of representation. Again, this is in our city, but most cities typically have a document that says, hey, you know what? We are representing you as a client, or we're not representing you as a client. So you want to make sure that they understand that they're getting a fiduciary duty from you to be able to represent them in the best possible way. Next one is going to be the privacy and notice consent. So this basically allows you to collect their information, tells the consumer how you're going to be using their information, and all that fun stuff. And then the last one is the property disclosure statement. So this one, what it does is it allows the seller to disclose any latent defects, any other defects, anything they might know about the property, ask them a whole bunch of questions that they might or might not have the answers to, but at least they'll be able to disclose what they do know. Now, step 4 is probably my favorite step. This is where you actually get to be a little bit more creative. So when you get to step 4, what you're going to want to do is start scheduling things like photos. You're going to want to start putting lockbox on the property. You're going to want to make sure that you're making brochures, start making social media posts. Guys, when you list a property, having all of these assets like social media posts, property tour videos, things like that, yeah, they're great for the property, but builds your portfolio. So you're able to have all these pieces of media on your socials, wherever you may put your pieces of media, but this will essentially show you as the authority figure in the industry that you have listings, that you know how to market your listings, so on and so forth. So you do want to make sure that you're really taking advantage of this step, because this is probably one of the most important steps for getting more listings out of this listing. So step 5 is what I like to call the data input stage. So this is where you're actually putting the information onto the MLS, however you may do it in your city. In our city, we have something called a data input form, where we basically just put all the little nitty-gritty details of the property on there, hit a button, and boom, it's on MLS. Now, this is one of the steps that you really need to be careful on. I personally do not like this step. I've outsourced this step because of that. But this is a step that's extremely important. And once it does go on MLS, you do want to double check this and make sure you have all the information correct. Because when buyers are searching for properties, and let's say it's in a buyer's category and the buyer says, hey, I only want properties with 6 bedrooms, and you put 5 bedrooms, when it has 6 bedrooms, you're missing out on an entire subset of buyers. So you need to be very careful. Step number 6, this is the hitting the button part. So this is where you hit the go live button. It's sent out to a whole bunch of buyers, a whole bunch of agents, and you start to get the ball rolling. Step 7, I wasn't really going to add this in, but I do want to add this in because it's extremely important. I just want to make sure you do double check and go into the MLS and check all that information again. Make sure it's very accurate. The worst thing you guys have happen is that the seller messages you and says, hey, why did you list our home as a 5 bedroom when it's a 6 bedroom? That's one of the worst feelings. Honestly, I've done it and it doesn't feel good. So just make sure you're double checking, making sure that everything's accurate. So step 8, this is where you can actually incorporate this into your 2-3 hours of prospecting every day. But this is where you're basically posting on places like Facebook Marketplace. You're posting it on places like Kijiji, Craigslist, Facebook, Instagram, making a YouTube video out of it. You can repurpose this listing for so many things, as that's not only going to lead to marketing it better and getting it into more eyes of people and making sure that you're getting the highest offers possible, but it's also going to start getting you exposure to be able to get more listings, more buyers, more deals eventually, if you do this right. And this is one step that a lot of agents miss. They put it on the market and they hope that it sells without ever marketing it again. This is one mistake you don't want to make. Please make sure that you are actively marketing your listings and being the best agent out there. Step 9, you finally get a showing request. So this is when somebody, an agent or a buyer, wants to show your property to maybe their client or themselves and their family. So this is where you're actually going to be going there or giving them the lockbox code or whatever it may be to show that property. But there's a couple things you need to do. So when you do show that property, you do want to be there to answer any questions, be the expert of that property. But when that showing's done, a day later, you want to make sure that you follow up with the person and ask them for feedback. This is so critical because it's going to give you a leg up on so many different things. So the first thing it's going to get you a leg up on is give you feedback as to, hey, is this property going to sell? What's the problems with it? Second is going to be, what is the feedback in terms of price? Is it priced too high? Do they think that the finishes are not nice? Do they think that this should be added? Maybe they should change the grass out. Things like that. That'll all give you ammo to go to your seller if in 2-3 months the property doesn't sell. You know you need to either change something or you need to drop the price. So you want to make sure at every step of the way you're getting feedback, but you're also relaying that feedback over to the sellers so that they're hearing the same things as you. Because what's worse is that you hear all this feedback and you're understanding, hey, this is not a sellable property. This is maybe overpriced, or the lawn needs to be changed. And the seller knows nothing. They're just going on about their day, happy go lucky. They're like, yeah, you know what? My property's listed. My agent's the best. He's going to sell it. But you don't know you're getting all this negative feedback. So definitely keep them in the loop. Share that with them at every moment possible. And you'll be able to get what you need at the end, which might be a price drop or an increase improvement of the property. I know a lot of agents sometimes don't give you that feedback. So you want to be on the ball and you want to be texting them, calling them, emailing them, whatever it may be, the method of communication that they want. It's not about us. Now, step 10 is getting the offer. So I'm going to break down every single part of the offer so you can completely understand it and you can go explain it to your seller when it's time to present it. So the first part of the offer is the details of the sellers and the buyers. You want to make sure that that's all accurate. You want to make sure there's no mistakes there, because that's what's going to be going on titles. Now, the next thing is the price. One of the most important things about the offer. You understand that this price sometimes might just be a starting point. Josh Altman from $1 Million Listing himself said that some of his biggest deals were the most furthest apart in price at the beginning. This has completely stuck with me, and I've negotiated some amazing deals that started at really complete garbage offers. Never get intimidated, whatever the price may be. Always look to get the deal done with the other agent. Then you're going to have included items. So you're going to have items such as the microwave, dishwasher, stove, things like that. You want to make sure that that's all accurate, and actually the number that of stoves or fridges or whatever it may be that are in the house. So if there's a basement suite, make sure that you say fridge times 2, or it says fridge times 2. You don't want any ambiguity there. Even if you're the seller and you're trying to take advantage of the buyer, at the end of the day, there always becomes problems. So make sure everybody's just clear on what is included. Now, next is the dates. So there's 3 important dates. One is the completion date. Now, this is where the money gets transferred and the lawyers handle the mortgages and all that stuff. So this is the time where all of the money gets transferred. Then there's a possession date. This is the time that the buyers actually get the key. There's typically a date and a time here. And then finally, there's an adjustment date. So if there's anything that needs to be adjusted, let's say, for example, you're taking on a tenant and they are in there and it's the 15th of the month and we're closing and they don't move out till the 30th, you should be adjusted that rent from the 15th to the 30th, and you should be able to get some of that back. Also with bills like hydro, also with bills like property tax, things like that always get adjusted within the adjustment date, and that's the day that they go by, and then you can see it reflected on the lawyer's statement of adjustments. Then you're gonna have your subjects. So these are things that the buyer may put in here, saying that they want, hey, I want some time to inspect the property. I want some time to make sure my mortgage is approved. I want some time to maybe look at the condo documents. Maybe it's a condo strata building and they have documents and they want to look at the meeting minutes. This is all pretty standard. Typically 7 to 10 days is a standard subject removal period. I like doing my subject removal periods pretty quick. I can usually get better prices because people get more excited, but this is where you'll see all the subjects of the offer. Then you have offer open tell date. So this is where you have the time to accept the offer or counter the offer. If you don't do anything within that time frame, the offer is considered dead and you'd have to revive that offer or write a completely new offer. Now, step 11, this is where you actually negotiate. Now, negotiate doesn't just simply mean the price. Sometimes it means negotiating terms, dates, different things about the offer that maybe you never thought about. Maybe some dates are really important for the seller or buyer and price is not that important. Maybe they don't mind paying an extra $10K if they can close this month. And that's where you can really have fun and get creative and work for the best interest of your seller. So figure out what's exactly important to your seller, figure out what's exactly important to the buyer to your best of your ability, and then try to merge the two and get the best deal for your client. This is the part I have the most fun with, and I encourage you guys to have fun with it as well. Negotiation is truly a skill that you build, and there's a whole lot of books you can read about it. Now, step 12 is the subject removal period or condition period, again, depending on where you live. But this is the time that the buyer has to fulfill those requirements of those subjects. So let's say they had 10 days to make sure they get an inspection done, make sure they get financing, make sure they look at the condo documents, all that fun stuff. This is when they'll start typically arranging for appraisals, people to come by the house, make sure it's all good. Because after this time period, then they have to really commit to the house. Now, step 13, when they actually really have to commit to the house. So this is when you remove the subjects. Now, this is a point that can either go really well, or it's a point that can either go really wrong. So depending on if those conditions were met, if they're happy and satisfied with the property, dependent on their subjects, this is where they can either remove the subjects, and at that point, you typically have 24 hours to get a bank draft in, and that'll be the deposit of the house, or you basically don't remove the subjects, or you send a waiver saying that you're not moving forward because maybe you didn't get your financing, maybe you didn't like the inspection report, which in a lot of cases you can negotiate the inspection, but let's say you didn't come to terms on the negotiation of the inspection. Things like that will lead to somebody not removing the subjects. And then typically after you do get the subject removal, you do want to send all the documents to your brokerage, and then possibly to your lawyers if you have to do that manually. My brokerage actually sends all the documents to lawyers for me, so it makes it a lot easier, but you might want to check with your board or your brokerage if they actually do that, because this is when the lawyers do need to get involved, and they do need some time to be able to register the mortgage, pull documents, all that fun stuff. So this is the time where you actually get the lawyers involved, and then you're kind of hands off. So step 14 is possession. So you were hands off for a little bit. You let the client deal with the lawyers and things like that. I typically do check in with the sellers and even the buyer's agent, make sure everything's good to go about a week or two before closing. And then we come to this possession date. So this is the date where you actually give the keys. You want to make sure you do a quick walkthrough of the property, make sure it's all clean. You don't want to ever give a buyer a really dirty property, or a property that maybe you wouldn't want to take possession of, because what it does at the end of the day is there's not a lot of recourse. They can sue in small claims, things like that. But the thing is, your reputation is going to be on the line, especially with that other agent. In this business, a lot of the times, client relationships don't last as long as realtor relationships. You're going to see this agent at events. You're going to maybe do another deal with them. You want to have a good reputation in the industry. And that starts with the closing. How was the closing? How was the possession? Did you handle the keys on time? Did you give a clean property? Did you tell your client to clean the property? Things like that. Step 15, again, is a very important part of the process. And this is a part that a lot of people leave out. I don't know what for reason. Maybe they were never taught. Maybe nobody ever told them about this. But you want to nurture the seller. You want to nurture your client regardless of the fact that maybe they moved to another city, maybe they moved to another country, maybe they just moved down the road. You want to nurture them in a way that just kind of stays in touch with them, keep them up to date with market trends, and keep them kind of up to date about what's going on with the real estate market as a whole. You also want to make sure you know their birthday, send them something nice on that day, because those relationships typically lead to 7 deals over the lifetime of a client. So imagine if you just completely forgot about a client and your average commission is 10K on a deal, and you just don't ever talk to this client again. They never refer you anybody. You lose out on 7 deals. And now that's 70K in commissions you've just lost just because you didn't send a birthday card, or you didn't say happy birthday, or you didn't maybe keep in touch with them using a CRM. It's super easy. You can automate this system, but this is a completely necessary step in the process, and if you integrate it into your actual process, then you'll be miles ahead of 99% of agents. And that is it. I hope you guys got a whole lot of value from this. This is my 15-step process, and when I take a listing and list a seller's property, I'd appreciate it if you smash the like button, but more so importantly, hit that subscribe. We're going to be coming out a whole lot of different content, not only on steps like this and the realtor process, but a lot of things on how to generate these leads. How do you actually get in the room with sellers? How do you get in the room with buyers? Things like that. I'll see you guys on the next one.